I'm going to go to the official place to download. Like, I don't recommend, when you're learning a language, I don't recommend going through like Brew or apt or any of that stuff. If you're actually going to program in the language, I mean, it's one thing if you just need to install a tool that needs it, but if you're actually programming in it, Ruby, Node, like my experience has always been, it's always a bad idea. So just don't do it. I don't even like to use the system installer. So, on Mac, on Windows, you might have to. So okay, sure. Go ahead. So I'm going to come down here to the Darwin and copy the link address from the tar.gz. Where did I put my terminal? I did not put a terminal. Let me come back over here with a terminal. All right, cool. So I just work from my downloads folder in this case. So in case you didn't know, -C on wget will do resumable downloads. So like if your network connection fails while you're downloading something. Yeah. So, and GNU curl has a similar option, but its syntax is stranger. It's like -O hyphen or something like that. The wget just is simpler. And I don't know if wget actually comes with macOS or if you have to brew install it. But I always tend to, for my system utilities, I try to use the Unix utilities from Brew rather than the ones that come from the Mac toolkits because the BSD utilities are always a little less useful. Like, I don't think I've ever come into a case where it's like, dang it, I wish I had the BSD version of cat or curl or, whatever. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So you'll never you can always go up a version. But the only case is if you were to use some new feature of the language or of the standard library, which I don't know if they've added new language features yet. It wouldn't be backwards compatible. So anyway, and then what I like to do, just generically speaking, it's not necessary for this, but I like to make a folder like go temp and then go into there because you never know when you untar or unzip something whether it was packaged in such a way that it'll have the folder or whether it won't. Um, no, pushd is in every shell. It's Windows, Mac, and Linux. It pushd is like it's like cd, and in fact, in some shells like ZSH, I think cd is an alias to pushd. But pushd is something essential to use anytime you're writing a script. So I just use it all the time because it keeps track of your directory stack. So as you go into directories with pushd, you can come out of them with popd. So if you've ever done any bash scripting, well, if you ever do any bash scripting, you run into this because you have to go into a directory, but sometimes a problem can happen, or you go in several directories deep, and you can't just use cd dash to get back because you need to get back several directories, and they might be contingent upon like variables, so you don't actually know what the root directory is that you're supposed to be in anymore. So I just always use pushd and popd for everything because they, in the worst case, it works just like cd, and in the best case, it does exactly what I need a directory switcher to do. So, yeah, it's like every shell implements it. Even if you were to use something like BusyBox, you're going to find pushd there. Now, whether or not pushd works in BusyBox or whether it's just an alias to cd, I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, so I just create a junk folder. It doesn't matter what we call it, just so I can unzip or untar or whatever. Because, like I said, you just never know when you're downloading something whether it's going to be meant to like go to the root file system or if it has like, this one is just named go, but sometimes inside it's named like the program name -v1 -darwin or whatever. So that's just a thing I like to do. And then here's what I do next. I move it into, well, I create a directory. This is one of the, whoops. This is one of those like semi-standard things. So you should have a .local in your home directory. You may or may not. And then local should just be like user local is. So whereas user local is to install something for an entire system, and then you have to have root permissions to be able to access it. With .local in your home directory, you don't need root permissions to access it. So I always put stuff in .local when I install it, and then I follow the same pattern that I would for like standard Unix file system. So basically complete things I put in opt, or if I wanted to install it like I would with user local, then I'd have it fill out with the whole user and lib and bin and all that. But anyway, so I'm going to take my Go and I'm going to move it to local opt Go 1.14.2, I think is what this release was. And then I'm going to get out of this directory and get out of this directory. And I created a tool called Pathman to manage the path, because this turns out to be frustrating. And if you want it to work across Windows, Linux, and Mac, then they all have a different way of doing it. So I figured all the intricacies of that, and I've made a thing called Pathman. So you can npm install -g Pathman, and it will install Pathman for you. And then when you have Pathman, you can say Pathman add, and then give it the path to a program that you want to have in your path. And then it will say where it updated the path to. And now anytime you open a new shell, that path is set. And you can also do like remove or list. Like if I do Pathman list, then it shows these are the entries that Pathman can remove. And then these are entries that come from some other cascaded something before, Pathman has any hold over it. So, whoops, I did that wrong anyway. Hold on. I'm going to go ahead and remove this because that was wrong. And I'm going to go ahead and remove my other one. And I'm going to go ahead and remove, no, I'm not going to remove that last one. Well, I am, because I need to show you how to add it. So I'll go ahead and remove go bin as well. Okay, so now we're as if, oh, nope, there's still one that's there. Let me do that. Okay, cool. So now we're as if I'd never had Go in my path at all, which if you, except there it is. Oh, okay, I know why that's there. It's because I'm in a shell that still has it. Sorry. Okay, here we are. So now this shows me all the stuff that's in my path. You can see that there's no Go there. So now I'm going to add Go to my path from local opt Go 1.14.2 bin for, oh yeah. And if you do Pathman help, it tells you. It's pretty intuitive. Add remove list. And then it spits out what you need to do for your shell to make. Well, it's also, I mean, just when things modify your path, you never know where they modified your path, because there's like 6 different files that your path can be modified in. And anyway. Yeah, so I made Pathman so that everything is a single line in an environment folder or an environment file, and that way, it can easily edit it. And anyway, so there's that. So now Go is in my path. So if I do Go version, and if you had Go installed previously, you would need to go in your bash RC or ZSHRC or whatever it is. I'm on Catalina, so I don't have a bash RC. I have a ZSH RC. But I don't have any GoPath stuff set in here, so we're good. All right, so next step is I just want to create a Go project. So I'm going to create... typically, so the way that I have my system set up is I have my GitHub folder, and then inside of it I have like all the clones of things that I have and whatever. So that's a good way to go. But if you already had GoPath, then your GoPath would have been set up like that, and then it would mess things up. But just Go's, the reason I say this is Go's packages are URL based, and so it's convenient if on the file system you have like your example.com or github.com/example or whatever, and then your projects are in there. It's not necessary. It's just with GoPath, it was necessary to do it like that. It's not necessary to do it that way. It's just something I find to be a good practice. So what you do need to do when you start a Go project is run go mod init and then give the URL of the where someone is going to find the repository. So I mean, maybe yeah, essentially, yeah. Except that Go is all through Git, so there is a central package repository, but it's something that Google manages, and it's managed for security. So SHA-SUMs are stored. They don't store code on their central package repository. They just store SHA-SUMs. So when you do go mod init, you get your go.mod, which initially is just going to contain the name of your module and then the Go version. And yeah. Well, you can do a bunch of nifty things, like replace. Well, we'll get into first things first, I guess. So it's convention if you're going to make a binary to create a command folder, and then inside command you have your like main.go. So you've got package main, and then you import, and then you put in some things to import, and then you've got func main, and then we'll just print line hello world, and then we'll do one better in a minute. So from here I could do go run commands main. Actually, it's not, I did that wrong. So what I should have done is this. So let me change that. So the better convention would to do this. So now what this means is if I publish this to a public repository, I can run. So actually, let me do this on a public repository. I'll actually create an actual repository for us to work with, so you can see how the Go tooling works. So Go demo. Let's give it a better name. Foobar 6000. That is a better name. Because I don't want to have dashes or hyphens or things that you wouldn't have in a Go package name in my repository name in this particular case. So we'll initialize it with a README and a git ignore for Go and a license of. I've become a fan of the MPL. Whoa! Oh, GitHub's getting political on us. Okay. All right. No MPL for us. Okay, then I guess I'll go with the what? ISC is not in here either. What are they? Well, I didn't realize that GitHub was so particular about the licenses they suggest for you. Well, particularly strange because NPM, they don't have the standard NPM license. Whatever, it doesn't matter. All right, so let's start over a little bit. So I'm just gonna back out of here. I'm gonna go GitHub. I don't use GitHub, so I'm gonna use it for this. Let's see, git at what did I do wrong? Is it colon? It's colon. That's what's wrong. Okay, cool. So now I've got this empty repository here. So we'll do go mod init and then whoops, yeah. And so the name of the project is foobar 6000. Okay, so now I'm going to make a command directory called foobar 6000. And then inside of that, we're going to create foobar 6000.go. Again, this is convention. You could call it main.go, but it's convention to call your main whatever the name of the package is, and then your supporting files can be whatever. So this is going to be, well, technically the name of the package is main, but well, you'll see in a second. We're actually going to run this. So I'm going to do import. I'm going to put in fumpt function main, and then we're going to do fumpt.println foo bar 6000. All right, so if I go into this directory and I run go build, then it's going to build it the name of the package. So we can see foobar 6000 is built there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. What do you mean? Yeah, go build. So go is everything. Go is your linter. Go is your build tool. Go is your formatter. Go is everything. So for example, here's how you format all the files in your entire project. You run go format. There's also go doc. And then there's a number of things that have not quite been deemed essential enough to be in the standard library, and then they're in the X library, which the X library I don't know whether it's supposed to stand for extended or experimental, but it's the X library. And the X library has go import and a couple of other things. So anyway, I wish I had added my directory before I ran go format so we could see the difference. But go format will put all of your lines and spaces and everything. And if I were to git clone go vim, then I'd have that. Anyway, so let's look at Git Status. So here I've got my command file. Oh, and I'm going to add my go.mod. And I'm going to commit this as add foobar 6000 bin. All right. Now, there's another thing that I did forget to do, but it wouldn't have come up yet with adjusting my path, because right now go is in my path, but my go bins are actually not in my path. So this is where the standard library tooling stuff goes, like the go build program. But this is not where things go when I install them. So if I run go git github.com solder.js foobar 6000, that is going to go install github.com solder.js. Oh, whoops. Commands foobar 6000. Okay, now that installed foobar 6000, but foobar 6000 is not in my path. So what I need to do is add go bin, which didn't exist a minute ago. It was just created when I ran go git for the first time on a binary file. So now And you can set this, like you could set go bin to be something else if you wanted to in your path variables, but it's fine for me to just leave it there. I kind of would prefer it to be under .local, but whatever. So now if I run foobar 6000, so that was installed from the Git URL. So it goes to the end URL, and it basically looks for a special meta tag, and it just queries this URL, doesn't find the meta tag, queries this URL, doesn't find the meta tag, queries this URL, finds that it is a Git repository. And then, or actually the meta tags are only needed for vanity URLs, I think. I don't know if regular URLs need them. But in any case, this URL it finds as a Git URL. So it did a shallow clone of it, of whatever was head, and then it built foobar 6000 under command. Now, this gets really cool because, well, let's say that you need a Go build tool. So I can do Go run. So this is kind of like npx in a way. So Go run will fetch it if it isn't already, well, actually it doesn't, maybe it doesn't fetch it. So there is a global cache where all the Git stuff is checked out to. All right. So let's say that I want to run a particular version of this. So I can do v1.1.1. Oh, I can't do it. I know there's a way for me to do this. Hold on just a second. Let me look at one of my... This is my new computer, so I don't even have all my projects set up on here. I've just been copying them back over as I'm using them. But let me see if I've got anything in here that actually uses this. I don't think I do yet. That's okay. I don't remember what the syntax is off the top of my head, but there definitely is a way to... Oh, no, you can't. You can't. This is what you do. Let's see if I can find something else. I'm going to go for Filebox because that's the one I'm familiar with. This is just a common Go package utility. It's for, like, if you want to include a website inside the binary, you'd use a Go bin data program, and there's like 6 of them. This is probably the second most popular. The most popular is VFSGen. Or the most popular is probably still Go bin data, but it's defunct. Like the author quit maintaining it, and this is one of the forks. Any case, here's what I'm going to do. Am I going to do that yet? I'm not actually going to do that yet. I'm gonna hold off for a second. So I've got a command. I could have several commands in my command folder, and then I'm going to have I'm going to create a widget package. So inside my widget package, I'm going to do package widget. So this is now github.com/solderjs/foobar6000/widget is now its import path. So I'm going to import thumped here, and I'm going to have a function called greet, and this is where I'm going to put my hello, or I don't know, yeah, sure. Oh, and I did not put quotes on that. That's bad form. No, I just, because I was doing that Vim video, I actually removed all of my Vim plugins. I just copied them to a different directory, and I didn't put them all back yet, so my linter's not running as I'm typing. Okay, so now I've got my widget, and I'm going to do go format to see what go format thinks of my widget. So it didn't have anything bad to say. All right, so now typically what you'll find is you have 3 import sections. So at the top will be standard library, and then the middle will be this package, and then you'll have like third party. And this is not something that's enforced. This is just a convention. You know, it's like, so github.com, and then if you have Go imports, so here's a cool thing. I'm actually going to do this with Go imports instead of doing it myself. So I'm just going to leave thump there, and then I'm going to do widget.greet, and I actually was just programming in JavaScript, so I did my widget wrong, because public functions are with a capital letter, right? Okay, so now I've got widget.greet, and that wouldn't run, and I have this extra import that I don't need, so this won't compile, but correct. So I'm going to run, and this, sometimes it's annoying, but if you have Go imports as part of your, you know, VS Code or Vim or whatever, then it's just fine, because you run Go imports, and then Go imports. Now let's take a look at what's there. So we got rid of thumped because it didn't need it, and it searches the function signature. So it says, okay, can I find anything that matches this package name and function signature within the current package's subpackages? And if it can't find that, it'll cascade up to anything that you've ever installed before. So in its big, large cache of all the things you've ever git cloned or go git id, it'll have stuff. So if I were to just put here, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like some package that I commonly use, nothing's like coming to me, but basically, like, let's say I had OAuth 2 and it has an authenticate function, and there's like an OAuth 2 package in the X library, but there's also an OAuth 2 package from like Twilio, right? So if my function signature matches whichever one, you know, so one of them has a function signature where it takes a string and a number, and the other one has a function signature where it takes a struct and a Boolean, then it'll just match which one I intended from the cached packages and then import that. So that can be slow, because when it can't find, like if you actually screw up and mistype something, and you don't already have something else, like if I already had it imported and I used it correctly in one place and then incorrectly in another place, it would be fine. But if I don't have it imported and I don't have a correct usage of it, then it will literally go through like every package searching for a package and a signature that matches. And so Go imports will run slow if you are doing things incorrectly, but it will run quickly if you're doing things correctly. So anyway, there's that. So you just saw that it automatically updated my imports. So you typically don't have to worry about whether your imports are right or not. I do like the convention of always putting them in parentheses. I don't know why they made it so you could, because technically you can just do import, 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 import. And when you only have one import, Go imports likes to remove the parentheses, but just because, yeah. Anyway, so there's this, right? Now, if let's just commit the progress so far. Now, Go versioning typically works with Git tags. So if I tag this as v0, and it needs to be simver. If I tag this like this, then there's no compatibility guarantee. But if I push a tag that's a v1 tag, all right, so now I'm going to push v1. And I should have just gone ahead and done v2 as well. So if I do a v2, that means that there's breaking changes. Oops. Why did I do -F on that? That seems a silly thing to do. So now, if I want version 1 of the widget, I do this. But if I want version 2 of the widget, I do this. And so V1, V2, V3, anything that starts with a V and a single digit is considered to be special. So you can't name a package V2. Or maybe you could technically, but it would be a very bad thing to name a package V2. What this will do, and actually the V2 would be here at the top level, not at the lower level. So what this would do is when it finds V2, it tells it, okay, if this is a package and I see V2, either I should be looking for a folder called V2, because you can do subversion style versioning where you put your versions in separate folders, or you can do Git style versioning where you tag things. But either way, it will look for either the folder or the Git tag, and it will check out the highest level of V2 that it has, or whatever matches the modules directory. And so now this will use the V2 widget instead of the V1 widget. Does that make sense? All right. Then now I'm going to go back to the issue of filebox. So this is an external, whoops, no .git at the end. Let's see what happens. It's probably downloading a bit because it might have one thing I don't like about Go is you end up having the npm problem with Go test. Oh, by the way, the testing framework is built into. So you've got Go test, Go doc, Go builds, everything. And there are, separate testing frameworks and whatnot, but yeah. But sometimes in their tests, which, end up in your go.mod and your go.sum. So if we look at go.sum, this is the equivalent of package lock. So sometimes you end up downloading the world because people are doing, integration style tests in their tests. And then here, this is what I was talking about, the X libraries. So you got golang.org/X. These are all the things that might make it into the standard library, but are currently not in the standard library. And you can see most of them are versioned V0. So yeah, all these got added because I added filebox. Now, there's going to be a problem though, because you see it says indirect. It doesn't know why this is a dependency. So when I run go mod tidy and it cleans up all my dependencies, no matching versions for query latest. I don't know why maybe I do need to put V2 at the end of the thingy. Let me try this again. Or maybe it doesn't work because it's inside the same package, and so it's getting confused because it's like, you don't do that inside the same package. Let me try this one more time. Okay, no, it doesn't like that. So something about the way that I did my Git versioning isn't quite correct. Maybe I'm not supposed to put the V there. I'm pretty sure I am. But I'm going to ignore that for now. Okay, so I do my go tidy, and I look at my go mod, and now it's empty. And this is because it went through all the code, and it found I never actually used filebox. Well, sometimes you have Go tools that you don't use directly because you don't need them in your code, but you need them for your build system for some reason. And yeah, so they're dev dependencies. And there's a way to handle that. But first, go.sum. I'm surprised that happened. Usually go.sum keeps whatever was in there because it tracks versions historically. So if you had version 2 of something at one point and then you have version 2.2, it'll actually keep both SHA-sums in there, or at least that's how it behaved before. So I'm kind of surprised that it wiped that stuff out, because usually in your go.sum, it keeps a historical log of the different versions you use, so that if you need to roll back, you have a reference of like, what was the version that worked? Oh, it was It must have been, you know, one of these versions that I'd used previously when I built. Okay, so I'm going to make a tools directory. And I'm going to put in the tools directory, I'm just going to call it tools.go. And this is a faux package. So all I'm going to do in here is put imports. I think this is this one? Okay. Sometimes people don't put it under command, like when the package is only a binary and it doesn't have a library, then it'll be the top level. But often if they have a binary, it'll be under command. So anyway, I've got this here. Now what this allows me to do is it allows me to version FileBox. So now if I go back and do the go get FileBox, it's going to get it at version 1.1.4, and now I can manipulate that so the tooling can be at version 1.1.4. And now when I run go mod tidy, it doesn't delete it, and in fact it finds out that it's not an indirect, that it actually is required. So because I created this fake package, and the way I forgot, I need to do, was it build plus tools? Whoops, yeah. There we go. That's what I need to do to prevent this from getting built when I do a build all. I think that I don't. Yeah. No, I'll finish up here pretty quickly. This is like the last thing that I want to go through because I find this to be really useful. So now if I do go build, let's see, even if I go into tools, if I do go build, it should not build. So I do go build. Oops. All right, I did something wrong. This is one of those things where I forget whether there's a space or not. Yeah, go build tags tools. Hopefully I find my own thing. Hold on. Okay, plus build tools. There we go. That's what it is. It's one of those things that I always have to look up because there's slightly different syntaxes for these various like decorator comments. Okay, so now when I run build, it won't build tools because it'll only build tools if I specify tools, but I never will. So this gives me a way to put something in a dummy file that when I run go mod tidy, it says, well, you're not building tools, but if you provided a tag, you could build tools. Therefore, it stays in the package management, which now means if I wanted to run a generate, which I won't go through exactly how that works, but it's something like this. So that means now I can use build tooling and the build tooling is versioned. Does that make sense? Okay, so there's that. And then the very last thing is go mod vendor. So once I've got my project working and building and I'm ready to actually have somebody else participate, I run go mod vendor. And then there's a couple of things like this. I just need to update to be go run dash mod vendor. And they're like anywhere that I have in any of my build tooling, after any go command, I just need to add dash mod vendor. And then I run go build dash mod vendor. And this is what I'd put in the README is I would put how to build this. go build dash mod vendor. And now I did something wrong. Yeah. So anyway, this was the last thing, was just vendor, and I did something wrong. But basically, you add your vendor directory to your project. So now I just added like 1,000 files. But notice it will only get the files that are actually Go files and license files. So no JPEGs, no, right? Like there's a certain list of files that it will get, but it's not going to download like the test folder. You know, so you're not getting garbage. You're just getting really lightweight, the things that you need in order to build, and then the license and the README and then like the CI stuff, right? So no garbage. So you commit that to the repository, and now I have something that guarantees that when someone else runs it, any tooling they run runs with the exact version. Network connectivity is not an issue because everything that there needs to be a cache of is provided in the vendor directory. So everything's versioned, everything's vendored, everything's based on URLs. So this right here, this is what I love about Go, and this is what I wish everybody knew. The one thing that we didn't have time to go through was Go doc, but essentially, essentially you run like Go doc and give it a port number or a URL or something. Yes, and then one more thing. Okay, this is the last thing, and this only takes a second. So I'm going to take my GitHub URL, okay, and I'm going to do godoc.org/ and I paste my GitHub URL. Hold on. What? Yeah, I did something wrong. Like I think the first time you do it, you have to like go to the Godoc registry and then like paste in the URL there. But then it automatically updates all the time. Since the 1.0 release, Go has never broken backwards compatibility, as far as I'm aware. At least not with the language. There's one thing I've been pushing them for to break compatibility with, because it's the crypto public key interface is an empty interface, which means that it is useless. Empty interfaces are bad, because they're like there should be like a compiler warning when you have an empty interface. They're kind of like a placeholder for like, I'm going to do something with this, but I don't know exactly what I'm doing yet. But then in one particular case, at least, I mean, I don't know the entire Go API, but at least in one particular case, they never went back and filled out the interface, and then it made it into a version 1 release, which means that they can never go back and fix the interface. And I'm trying to convince them that since the interface is meaningless and you could only get an error at runtime. Like if you use it incorrectly, if you use it correctly, then your program will work. And if you're using it correctly, then fixing it wouldn't break anything that's already working. If you use it incorrectly, then you'd get an error at runtime, in which case it's better to have a compile time error than a runtime error. So since the program isn't correct, then is fixing the interface, although it technically breaks the not syntactic, but what's right above syntactic. It breaks perfect standard library compatibility, but only in a case where an error would get thrown at runtime anyway. So I don't think they're going to go for it. I think they're going to stick with their, like, if anything, add a new interface, but I don't think they do. I don't know if they do that either, because that would set a bad precedent, because you don't want like public key 2. Anyway. So, yeah. Well, yeah. And Rust is similar. Rust and Go have somewhat similar philosophies, except Rust is really lean on the standard library and Go is really heavy on the standard library. Go takes a very, very long time. Like, it'll take them 5 years before they'll put something from the X library into the standard library. But essentially, the X library, like, if it's not in the standard library, it's in the X library. And if it's not in either of those, then you could build it yourself, and it would probably be better to do that than to go find someone's third-party library that does it. With very few exceptions. Like, the Chi is the router is nice. Like, Go Chi is good, but because the built-in router is not what most of us web developers want in a router, because the built-in router was built by systems developers. But yeah. All right, I may publish it. I was kind of using it as a rough draft to just like go through thoughts with a real person. So, because I'm going to create a couple of Go videos where it's like, here's how you install Go, and then here's how you create a Go package, and here's how you add a dependency, and here's how you add a build dependency.